Although Xeno, he's still pushing. He doesn't care about the high ground, and his toads are going to come in and do a lot of damage right now. Moon and his Badger are doing so much damage. They take out Master's main base. He first takes out the Snake War, so no more snakes. But all the scrolls are gone. Deadbones has the superior numbers at this moment. He's going to mow down Xeno's wards. GG! Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Clash of Comrades VYESHAL OKTOBERFEST. I'm Best Teammaker here of Clash of Comrades, and joining me on the mic today, last time you saw Delphius, this time we're going to see his partner in crime, Icebox. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, BTM, keeping it chill as always.
And today we have our first official 1v1 tournament of Clash of Comrades, our first one since the game's release, and there are some very fun things in store for us here today. So, for those wondering, we are playing on the 1.03 patch, including all the hot fixes, which include the quote-unquote Fox nerf and the Mole nerf. What are your thoughts on these current changes on how it might affect the matches here today?
I'm definitely excited to see less moles. It seemed like the mole nerf did kind of hold strong in its purpose to remove them. It might have removed them entirely from competitive play, but hey, that's still a little bit better in my book than what we saw during the Strawberry series.
Yeah, in the past, the mole has gone through several changes of being on and off, of having that critical building damage and having its damage changed throughout. Definitely the one previously was the strongest that we've probably ever seen the mole before, and now it's reverted back to a state where it was probably like several patches ago during the alpha, where it just wasn't really picked as much as other units. It just wasn't really too fast. So it's going to be very interesting to see if it gets affected at all by these current changes in the meta. I still think it's pretty useful as a unit that helps you get advantage. It's a very tanky unit for sure. It got an HP increase from 25 to 30 HP. So it's going to be very interesting to see if anyone decides to still take moles with them.
Yeah, I've been really curious to see its inclusion in that way. Like, that's the way I really love seeing moles the few times it's happened. I haven't been able to decide yet if high level players that we're seeing just like aren't necessarily taking advantage of that, or if it's just not a necessary addition to their composition. But it is really cool to see just that super health tank, putting it right in front of your army. Like, it's kind of comical now. They kind of only serve that purpose because they soak up all that damage and don't have a chance to do any of their own before hitting the front lines. But it's still just kind of a neat unit to see in the concept. I love it. I love the idea of a unit that doesn't need a warrant to be built, and so I'm kind of hoping that it finds its place in the tooth and tail meta.
And speaking about finding their place here, we got a very familiar face along with a new face here. ClassicMetal versus Epicosity will be our very first match of the day here. For those wondering, this is going to be a Swiss qualifiers tournament in which you play against, each round you play against a different player based on your score. And the top 4 players will be moving on to the final top 8 2 weeks later. People who don't make it will have one more chance to make their way through next week in the second qualifiers match, which should be very fun indeed, as I believe that should probably be played on the new patch, which will be discussed next week. But for right now, we're just going to be waiting for the word from ClassicMetal Epicosity to get their match started, and it'll be very interesting to see how they play.
And one more thing about the tournament. So there are 5 rounds, and each round people are going to be playing games and getting wins and losses based on that. And whoever just is the points based on just how many wins you have. So whoever generally has the most wins at the end of 5 matches is
pretty much.
Those people are at the top. Okay, I didn't know if there's like a point system for like wins, losses, and ties.
Yeah, Swiss. Well, it usually depends like on from people to people, but in this case, it's just gonna be using wins, losses, and then tiebreakers will be decided on the tiebreaker rule sets. So it'll be based on who you faced previously, how well your opponents did. Did you beat anyone else who had the same score as you? There are all these different tiebreaker rule sets. So theoretically, we shouldn't have to play tiebreakers to see who gets into the top 4. Theoretically, it might happen depending on how lucky people can get. It's going to be very interesting indeed.
Hey, you know, if the worst case scenario is we get to see more awesome games with Tooth and Tail, you're not going to find me complaining.
I know, right? It's great. I wish we could see more rounds, but right now, 19 players have stepped up to the plate, but only 4 will make it through this week as we get on our way into the drafting screen, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh yeah, so I don't know much about Epicosity. Have you you got any inside details on this player? ClassicMetal, I see he's an old head. He's a mod in the chat, and I've seen him around in a few of his games. But Epicosity is a mystery man to me.
I don't know for sure. ClassicMetal is the one I'm a little bit more familiar with. He's going for an all tier 1 deck, which is very interesting. He was very well known in the past for his squirrel play, and we're probably going to see that right here, right now. It's going to be game number 1 of the VYESHAL Oktoberfest qualifiers. Epicosity versus ClassicMetal. Epicosity in the south and ClassicMetal to the north on this very nice opening map.
Yeah, taking 4 tier 1s from ClassicMetal here. That's kind of like reminiscent of the old meta. No higher tiered units. He's going to hope to make a play off the backs of these lower tech units probably a little bit early. I mean, typically, is that what you think when you see a deck like this, BTM, that this ClassicMetal is going to shoot for a bit of an earlier game push and hoping to end it early?
That's usually the case, but tier 1s are a very evergreen kind of unit no matter what stage of the game you're at. And Epicosity's deck doesn't really have too many counters to ClassicMetal other than the board is able to come out. He's going to have to be very careful in watching what ClassicMetal's tempo is going to be for this map. The nice thing about this one, this is a very large map for these two players. They're farthest away from each other. A lot of flat grounds. The pigeon will be very useful for both sides. And there are plenty of expansions for both sides to take.
And a bit of a gentleman's agreement here, both going up to 8 farms before throwing down the first Warren. That's always exciting to me because we're not going to see any kind of crazy early game, and it allows us to see kind of the plans that these players have in mind. That's something that I always like to think about is like, what is the overarching game plan of players? And so often you see it just kind of come down to these early tier 1 pushes, and so it's nice to see a little bit of an economy here before these players start to move into the mid game.
And right now, we are going to see our first few units come out. ClassicMetal going to start with lizards instead, with Epicosity goes for double warrens or squirrels here. So some basic tier 1s coming out for both sides, both of them trying to scout the map here. And this is a very interesting kind of map where neither side really has too much of an advantage. There's a lot of flat ground that the lizards can use to take advantage of, but the way that the map is spaced out with the water, pretty much making a choke point for Epicosity means that he's able to set up his units to defend pretty easily against ClassicMetal for the need to rise.
And not only that, the water slowing down units to half their speed is going to really limit the attack pass that ClassicMetal has with these lizards. The choice here, it could pan out for him, but again, having the toads come out here from Epicosity means that these lizards are going to be a little bit less useful in their functionality in this build.
Yep, and right now, just waiting around, just trying to see both of them just taking their time with this one. We're going to see ClassicMetal go straight into tier 2s. He's not going to be harassed too much right now, so this is going to be a very good chance for him to go straight into that poison damage coming out from the snake. Meanwhile, Epicosity is going to go straight for the pigeons to support his ever-growing army of squirrels here, already up to about 4 warrens worth of squirrels.
I'm wondering if we'll see ClassicMetal eventually ditch these squirrels. He's definitely busting up to 9 right now, and with the snake, and I'm not sure. I mean, usually as a player myself, whenever I see toads, I usually try to hop out of the lizards as soon as I can. Do you think we're going to see that coming out of ClassicMetal?
I think it really depends. Recently, the squirrel and lizard combination has worked out very well. You have the lizard aggression serving as a front line. They're also the tankier unit to tank just that one extra shot, and that usually just allows the squirrels to just pick off units from the back lines very easily. So it's a combination that we usually see a lot of play normally.
I think it invites a lot of microaggression between the two players. Like, it kind of, you have to decide what to do with your lizards, when they should engage, if you can try to pick off some toads before running in with them, or if you do just want to purely tank and absorb all the toad hits. It looks like ClassicMetal is going to throw down, get rid of a few of his lizards and get some squirrels instead.
Now, one thing that ClassicMetal has to be a little bit careful of is that Epicosity is bringing a lot of pigeons into play. Already 6 pigeons on the battlefield waiting to go, and pigeons very strong in this current patch. The amount of healing they offer is going to be pretty huge, especially when fighting off against ClassicMetal's snakes. And Epicosity is also bringing his own snakes into the battlefield right now. Both of them are already right up the way, as ClassicMetal also gets his expansion up as well. 3 farms already plopped down, so both of them looks like they'll be gearing up for the long game.
Ooh. Absolutely, these 4 snakes coming out from ClassicMetal, and yeah, both players just seem to be content to to try to build up their forces before one kind of huge engagement decides the fate of them.
And we're going to see Epicosity go straight for a third mill. He's going to try to capture as much territory as possible to prevent ClassicMetal from attacking into him. Looks like we're going to have our first engagement of the day here. Squirrels laying down the ground here. The Toads coming in, destroying one of the snakes. The second snake also going to be taken down. Will the third one be taken out as well? There are a lot of squirrels slowly pumping out damage, but the snake is slowly doing damage as well. On the other side, ClassicMetal able to whittle them out, but that Toad explosion taking out most of the army here. And now it's just the snakes left from the side of ClassicMetal, but that should just be enough. Epicosity's entire army just laid to waste.
What an even engagement overall. I mean, it definitely turned out way in ClassicMetal's favor. He's going to be thanking himself for putting down those 2 Tier 2 Warrens instead of favoring a higher Tier 1 composition, because having those extra snakes at the end really paid off, because he lost a couple right away to some nice Toad connections from Epicosity, but having those 2 left over was enough to really seal the deal and take out that next expansion from Epicosity.
And now we approach that ever so lovingly 5-minute mark of the game. Your first form's dead from the start now, and that unfortunately leaves Epicosity in a pretty unfortunate state here because he went for that third mill. He doesn't quite have the money to match up against ClassicMetal for the time being. He's going to have to sit here and wait for his army to regrow. In the meantime, ClassicMetal's own army is just getting stronger, already up to 7 warrens of squirrels on their way very soon, backed up by the double snake warrens.
And whenever you get the upper hand in an engagement like that, ClassicMetal responds in the appropriate way. He went back and threw down a couple more farms, and we see the economic advantage going his way with 7 farms to 5. So it's one of those things where Epicosity's got to make something happen soon, or else it's going to kind of snowball.
He really wants that mill, though. He really wants to protect this choke point from ClassicMetal right now. And the question is he going to be able to get much value out of it? Because ClassicMetal can just poke his way in and out just because of how close he is to that territory line. We are going to see Epicosity try to go for a machine gun nest to try to defend things out right now as he goes for another attack. Once again, 3 Toad explosions, not enough here against ClassicMetal's army, who transitioned into mostly squirrels. A great counter to a Toad heavy lineup here. He is going to lose his snakes though, but his giant army of squirrels is more than enough to provide the damage for his army.
That was rough. He must have, it looks like he was keeping his snakes in the front line intentionally there to tank the rest of those bullet hive hits so that his squirrel ball could stay mostly intact by the end of that engagement. So as I was watching, I was kind of thinking, oh man, get those snakes out of there. But in hindsight, that looked to be the right decision because he has a huge Tier 1 ball left after that engagement, and Epicosity has got nothing off 3 farms.
Hey man, when you're playing as ClassicMetal, you have to be careful of the giant squirrel ball. This is the type of play that he really likes to play into. Just so many squirrels on the back line. When they have units tanking the damage for them, those squirrels do deceptively a lot of damage, especially 18 squirrels for the count.
They're still, that's essentially the highest DPS composition in the game, right? Regardless of tiers, right? I mean, if you have enough squirrels and they're able to focus something, nothing's going to outstrip that amount of damage output.
Probably the only one that could probably counter that is just Mass Falcon, because they're like basically flying squirrels with just better damage but much lower health tier wise. But we're not going to see Mass Falcons here, folks, so ClassicMetal's squirrels pretty much expect to just roll things over. And it does make me wonder, Epicosity keeping all these Toads, if it's worth switching out to something else. But it's the army he has currently, so he has to make this work.
Yeah, ClassicMetal selling off one of his snake horns and getting a few more pigeons to get that higher sustain, gearing up for this next engagement. Army value-wise, ClassicMetal is sitting in a pretty good position to just kind of do whatever he needs to. But I think he's following that old classic strategy adage: when you're ahead, just get more ahead. There's no need to throw your army up against a wall of 9 Toads here.
He is kind of skittering his way around, but he is finally going to cross the river here with his own army, and it looks like he's going to go uphill. Is he going to find the army up there? And he's very close. If he can breach that high ground, he'll see it. His pigeons are there as well, but he's not going to go up there quite yet. He's wondering where the army is, but here comes Epicosity's army from behind. Is it going to do enough damage? Any Toad explosions? 1 Toad, 2 Toads, take out the snake. They also take a good amount of lizards, but that's not the danger here. ClassicMetal still has a good amount of squirrels backed up by the pigeons, taking out each and every one of Epicosity's units here.
That was a really cute play by Epicosity. I love seeing things like that sort of positioning. I've had the pleasure of casting a few games where some smart positioning of Toads has really turned out well for the person who did that, but in this case it wasn't quite enough to turn the tide for Epicosity there. That was a really great game overall.
Yeah, and ClassicMetal, once again, you can see just the way that he's playing his game. Like, he gets a little bit of each unit, and then once he realizes what his opponent is planning, he'll switch up and just focus on one thing mostly. As you see in this game, he focused on the squirrels because he saw his opponent wait for so many toads to try to counter his lizards and try to get the burst damage on the snakes as well. So just transitioning straight into squirrels, just great game plan coming out from ClassicMetal. Epicosity, I'm going to have to see how he's going to have to change up the way he plays for this one. He has to be very aware of ClassicMetal switching up his game plan each and every time.
Does that? So you were saying earlier that ClassicMetal tends to favor this squirrel ball. Is he known for?
Oh yeah, this is
any
like
kind of
classic.
This is classic metal. Yeah, exactly.
He is the guy who does squirrel ball mostly every single game, just because of it. He just likes having just massive tier 1s doing this much amount of damage here, and if he can get away with it, he will get away with it.
And it seems like that was his long-term game plan. He built up some early lizards just to kind of be wary of anything early aggression-wise coming out of Epicosity, and then just slowly but surely transition into, I think he was up to 18 or 21 by the end of the game.
Yeah, he was. I think he sold off one squirrel warrants to make sure he had units coming out, I believe. But yeah, he just outnumbered Epicosity just man for man. So if you're ever in that situation, it's just really hard to make that kind of comeback here. And we're going to see Epicosity change up his tactics a little bit here. Going to go straight for the barbed wire, and this is actually a really good pick.
Ooh, I really like what I'm seeing here out of Epicosity. Some chameleons, one of my favorite units. Owls, another one of my favorite units, and barbed wire. I love when barbed wire works out well. And against ClassicMetal's deck here, if he gets it up, the only thing he can really do is fly some pigeons across that barbed wire. So really good picks coming out of Epicosity.
And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Game number 2, Epicosity situated himself in the north and ClassicMetal to the south, and both of them have their nice little pockets of safety.
This is going to turn out really well, I think, for Epicosity's deck. I think he's got to assume that ClassicMetal probably is going to stick with what worked last time, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that barbed wire pick is just such a brilliant choice, and I just hope we actually see it. Sometimes you see players take the barbed wire and then it doesn't make its appearance in the game at all.
To be noted, though, but the way that this map is structured out, ClassicMetal could actually pull off a pretty early wolf strategy, as it's pretty hard to attack into his base. So this is going to be another game of who's able to get the better economy first. We're going to see Epicosity immediately get that 8 farm. ClassicMetal's still on 7 for the time being, so Epicosity will have that one farm lead for a little bit here.
And there's almost no way we're going to see, well, can't say no way, but it's pretty unlikely with his deck choice that Epicosity is even looking for an early type of aggressive game. I think I'm predicting they're both going to try to snag these two. Oh, as soon as I say that, cool, Caster's Curse? Okay, maybe not. I think these players are probably going to snag these naturals right outside their main bases, and we'll see them build up from there. And in the long term, yeah, I'm not sure. I always love a lot of owls if Epicosity can survive long enough, but man, a big old tier 1, tier 2 wolf ball is a pretty dangerous ball of DPS too.
This is a good game, though, for Epicosity to use the barbed wire to his advantage here. ClassicMetal does not have any counters to the barbed wire, no natural dismantlers on his team. So he either has to rely on toads landing the explosion right on top of the barbed wire, or he's just not going to be able to attack into it at all.
Yeah, because toads do not attack it, right? I think they're kind of talking about changing it, but the only way to destroy barbed wire for any new players who might be listening is with units who have a melee attack, or units that can fly over it. So pigeons can't attack, that's pretty useless to fly over. And he has no melee units.
The AI pigeon rush is the most valid tactic the AI does, you know?
Yeah. I guess it's make love, not war, right? BTM, that's what they're going for.
Yeah.
I don't think it usually works out, but depends who you're playing against.
In terms of keeping with that little peace treaty these two players have going on right now, we have Epicosity going for that second mill right now, just trying to boost up his economy at the moment. He's not being attacked right now, but speaking of boosting, ClassicMetal going to go straight for that early wolf. He's going to be grabbing that tier 3 unit to burst up his economy. Also provides a bit of extra boosting for his units as well, as he's getting his 15 more squirrels out very soon.
This early wolf is
Epicosity going straight for the turtle.
Yeah, this early wolf is really interesting because it's definitely gonna against what Epicosity is trying to do. I think it's gonna turn out pretty well because the wolf buffs pretty much everything in the game. It buffs the production speed of buildings, the build time, the production of pigs. Pigs create 1 food per second, so wolves make them create 2 food per second. So it's kind of like the wolf gives you an extra base if you position him on your pigs. And so ClassicMetal is going to go for a heavy econ strat, which is going to go pretty well against Epicosity's heavy turtle strat.
It's kind of the only thing he can do right now. Every single lane possible has been hit with barbed wire. The only way ClassicMetal has way into his opponent's base is to wrap his way around the left side of the map. But for the time being, this is a little bit of a dangerous mindset for Epicosity to have. Well, oh, okay, never mind. He's going to stray into owls. He understands what he needs to do. He has the economy. He has the protection. So he will be getting that owl out to pressure ClassicMetal as hard as he can. And that owl pressure plus chameleons gonna make these 12 squirrels look pretty hard to do anything.
This strat, I mean, out of both of them, I'm a little bit on the side of Epicosity for this game because both of them have a deck that requires a good amount of build-up time. Because a wolf by itself is pretty useless unless it has tons of other units to go with it. So it's like even once ClassicMetal gets this out, his economy is going to be in great shape, but he's going to have to throw down a ton of warrants to make it that scary buffed death ball that he's looking for. And by that time, Epicosity might have 2, maybe 3 owls out, building up those free units.
It should be noted that because ClassicMetal is going straight into farms, he's going to have a gigantic economy by the end of this. So Epicosity either needs to respond in turn with his own farms, or he needs to make the attack right now while ClassicMetal's army is so low. But he's already getting out 4 snakes at the moment. Has a lot of money to do that, so Epicosity needs to act fast here. Hurling is a good strategy at this point, but he needs to make some use of it. His economy is not catching up at the moment.
It's hard to tell. Does the ecograph, it looks like it does not track what the wolf's doing, or maybe it does. It's hard to tell.
I don't think it's tracked what the wolf is doing, but I think that really sharp increase in economy you see is just due to the fact that he just popped down all the farms in the world on that one base. We are going to see Epicosity. He's going to start to make his move. He has the owl at the ready. His squirrels are marching along here, but there are some machine gun nests that he has to worry about here, so he's going to hang back for the time being, let the mice do the dirty work for the time. Doesn't quite take out the machine gun nest, though. Right now, both sides dancing around the middle. We have the wolf powered up snakes. This is something we've seen before in the past. Wolf powered up snakes are a very scary unit indeed to face up against. Will this owl be enough? He's going to retreat behind his barbed wire, force the engagement on his side of the map, and see if it's going to be enough here. The snake, unfortunately, in the line on the AoE here. Here comes the owl bomb as well, dropping mice above, and it doesn't seem to be doing too much at the moment, but he's slowly forcing his way back. The wolf is down as well. One singular toad coming in to try to take out as many squirrels as possible here, as both sides trying to play this really scarce game, but it looks like Epicosity is going to be able to chase away ClassicMetal. Both sides losing their critical tier 3 units, and they're actually around the same farm. 7 to 8 farms, so both of them will take a while in recovering their units into the battlefield. But right now, Epicosity does have that unit lead.
I don't think the wolf backfired, but the wolf definitely bled out ClassicMetal's farms a little bit early, so he's going to have to be looking out for where he can get this econ advantage back, because that is the downside of the wolf, is they don't make farms last any longer, they just make them burn out twice as fast. And so, yeah, we see them on close economies, Epicosity going down to 4 to ClassicMetal's 8, so it's a big advantage.
Epicosity immediately responds. He sells off the Owl Warren, gets a giant amount of squirrels to his army. Is this going to be enough, though? He still has to be careful about the large amount of pigeon support here, as well as the toads that are slowly filling out the numbers here. He's trying to find himself a good position, and his unit does have some territory to recover in. One chameleon coming out, but it's not going to be able to do enough. Too many poison sacks are on top of it, and then ClassicMetal is going to be able to shoot his way through. He's attacking his way into the mill right now, and Epicosity has to run back to his base to recover. And ClassicMetal even has the wolf back up and ready to go.
A small amount of indecisive micro on that chameleon coming out of Epicosity. He was trying to get the snake in the middle of that fight, and unfortunately, when a chameleon's moving, obviously it's not attacking. So that fight was rough for him in the end, and was too much. He taps out.
And because of that, we're going to see ClassicMetal gang himself another game, and I believe that is game, set, and match for ClassicMetal. Very nice change of stride for Epicosity, but unfortunately, ClassicMetal ballooned way too quickly ahead with his economy. He's reading the map situation very well, and just became so fat in food.
Yeah, that was really good stuff overall. I liked the change up coming out of ClassicMetal. It looks like the wolf did favor his still squirrel ball mentality, and it ended up being enough in the end. I think. What did you think of that owl bomb at the end?
I think it wasn't that great. The problem with that owl bomb was that there was no real advantage gained with it. ClassicMetal at that point had a lot of units to match up against Epicosity's own, so unfortunately it didn't really factor in too much. It did help to even out the battle a little bit here, just by the extra influx of mice, but Other than that, it was a pretty bad loss for Epicosity losing his owl, but he tried his best to transition into a lot of squirrels, but unfortunately fought a little bit too hard into ClassicMetal's side of the map.
I think he had his barbed wire positioned well enough that he would have been able to just sit back and kind of wait it out a bit, because obviously that's the strategy with owls, is you got to let that mice ball build up before you engage. And I'm not sure what ClassicMetal could have done if Epicosity just sat back. He would have had to take that long way around, as you pointed out earlier, and it would have at least given Epicosity a little more time to get those owls out. Obviously, hindsight's 20/20, but I'm just kind of trying to think, if I were in that position, what could have been different.
Well, for the time being, we have our first round almost completed here. We have a few matches to go.